Hey everybody, welcome back into the WSAZ Now studio. I am Joseph Payton. This is WSAZ Sports Plus. I am by myself today, just like I was last week. Remember, Jimmy Tracy was down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama with Keith Morehouse, shooting a really cool story about the Marshall Four. If you haven't seen that story, if you have not watched it, please go over to WSAZ.com or go to the WSAZ app. Go to our YouTube channel, search the Marshall Four. You'll find it. It's like 4.5 minutes long, certainly worth your time. Heartwarming story. Those guys always do an amazing job of just storytelling, capturing the emotion of these events and stuff. And so certainly would recommend you all go check out that story. Jimmy is off today because we have an action-packed week of all kinds of sports, whether it's high school football, college basketball, both men and women's. We also got college soccer. So there's a lot going on this week. So you just get me. But guess what? We finally have playoff action as far as high school football is concerned in all three states. Ohio's in the regional semifinal round already, so they're really 3 rounds in. For some teams, if you had a bye, it's your second game this Friday. In Kentucky, they are in the second round. So we have plenty of Kentucky teams left playing. And then now in West Virginia, we've got all the brackets. The playoffs are on. So we're going to show you in West Virginia the brackets for all 4 classifications. We're going to talk about the matchups of local interest, the ones we're going to be trying to get to both on Friday and Saturday, because there are some Saturday playoff games this weekend. And then we'll get into the other 2 states. More teams left in Kentucky than Ohio because, like I said, Ohio is a little further along in the playoffs. So as far as teams locally, there's not nearly as many left. We're hoping all of them go as deep as possible to keep us going to that side of the river. Hopefully somebody gets to Canton, right? I'd like to make another trip to Canton. So please, somebody, keep on winning games over in Ohio. But enough with all that. Just wanted to let you know kind of what you could expect on this show. Let's start in West Virginia. We'll start with the Quad A playoff bracket. Man, Huntington just missing that top seed there. So it goes number 1, Morgantown, 2 seed Huntington. Then it follows Martinsburg, Jefferson, GW at the 5, 6, Wheeling Park, 7, University, Spring Mills at 8, Musselman 9, Parkersburg, Woodrow Wilson, Oak Hill, Washington, Parkersburg South, Hedgesville, and Buchanan Upshur. So we'll start with some matchups of local interest. We're going to start with number 5, GW, versus number 12, Oak Hill. GW is 8-2 in 2025. Oak Hill is 5-5. Was trying to check out some common opponents for this matchup. Oak Hill lost to 2 common opponents that GW beat. That's Woodrow Wilson and Capital. GW beat Woodrow Wilson 42-0. That was just last week, so that's fresh. That's a result that, you think those teams don't look much different than they did last week. And then GW also beat Capital 30-7 a week prior. So the winner of this game plays Jefferson versus Washington. This is a Friday night game at GW. Again, number 5 GW against number 12 Oak Hill. Now we've got number 2 Huntington. The Highlanders are 8-2 in 2025. They host 15 seed Hedgesville, who is 2-8. We talked all year long about how this Huntington team looks to be one that certainly is good enough to win it all in Quad A. It's going to be an uphill climb once you start getting to the semifinal round and the championship round, but the Highlanders are more than capable of winning the whole daggone thing. The only wins for Hedgesville this year, I told you they're 2-8. They beat Dominion and they beat Parkview. Now, Huntington and Hedgesville do have one common opponent. That is Martinsburg. Martinsburg beat Hedgesville 71-7. And as many of you know, especially if you're in the Huntington area here, Huntington High beat Martinsburg way back in week 2. That was 22-20 here in Huntington. So the winner of this game will play either University or Parkersburg. And just for Huntington's sake, we don't want to, put the cart before the horse here, but I know a lot of people are thinking, okay, where's Martinsburg, right? So we know that Huntington's the 2 seed and Morgantown is the 1. So, of course, they wouldn't see Morgantown to the championship round. Where would they see Martinsburg? Well, they would see Martinsburg if those 2 went out in the state semifinal. So just something to keep your eye on. Of course, Billy Seals and his team know that they can't look forward to that. They got to take care of business this week and next before you even get to thinking about Martinsburg for a potential rematch. Let's go to AAA now. Talk about some of the seeding here. Bridgeport, that 1 seed, they've been dominant all year. So has Princeton. They're the 2. Then it follows Fairmont Senior, North Marion. You've got the Nitro Wildcats at 5, Spring Valley at 6, Herbert Hoover at 7. Then it goes Greenbrier East, Chapmanville Regional at 9. Man, the Tigers, you go 10-0. and you just miss out on potentially hosting a playoff game. It's just kind of the way of the world sometimes with the way your schedule works and the points you're able to get. So Chapmanville is going to end up going to Greenbrier East. We'll get to that in a moment. Winfield's the 10, Elkins is 11, and then the Capital Cougars at 12, Kaiser is 13, Robert C. Byrd at 14, followed by Hampshire and Pikeview. Let's start with that Greenbrier East matchup against Chapmanville Regional. Remember, the Tigers are undefeated. However, as the 9 seed, they got to go to Greenbrier East, who is number 8. They are 6-4 this year. We can tell you that Greenbrier East lost to Princeton, Allegheny, Bluefield, and Nitro. Those are their 4 losses. These 2 teams do have one common opponent, Nicholas County. Here's how those matchups shook out. Greenbrier East beat Nicholas County 41-14. Chapmanville Regional beat Nicholas County 24-12. Not that the transitive property means anything, but those are just, some of the data points that we have to kind of gauge where these teams are at relative to each other until we kick off. I can tell you that the Tiger defense has been unbelievable. They have not given up double-digit points in a game since September 26th. They got the sophomore quarterback in Dakota Dalton, who's been lighting it up on the offensive end, Preston Kovach, all kinds of weapons on the outside. Chapmanville is very much capable of winning this football game, getting to 11-0. It's not going to be easy. Greenbrier East is tough. And then the winner gets Bridgeport. So even if you do win this game, look who's coming after you. I know maybe I'm, giving Bridgeport too much credit, but I would be shocked if Bridgeport doesn't win their playoff game. So that's probably who the winner of this one is going to see, Bridgeport. Let's move on. How about number 5, Nitro against number 12, Capital? The Wildcats are 9-1 in 2025. Capital at 500, they went 5-5 this year. Capital kind of looks like 2 different teams when David Robinson's out there. And I know he finally got himself healthy. He's been playing as of late. So who knows what this game is going to look like. We just saw this matchup between these 2 teams, Nitro and Capital, 2 weeks ago. Nitro won a barn burner. It was 22-20. This is probably a matchup game, guys. This one's going to be really fun. I know we're for sure going to have this game on Football Friday night. It has the makings of Game of the Week. I don't know that for certain yet, but if it is, you will see Jimmy Tracy there at Nitro for this one. Nitro Capital, that's on Friday night. Look out, folks. This 5 versus 12 matchup is going to be fun. Let's move on to number 7, Herbert Hoover, who is 8-2 in 2025. They play number 10, Winfield, who is 7-3. This is a Saturday game. I believe I am headed up to this one. It's at 1 o'clock. These 2 teams actually did play this year. Of course, they're 2 local teams. That was way back in week 2. The Huskies won 35-0. So Joey Fields probably telling his guys, hey, you can't look back at that game and say that's exactly what we're going to do. Teams get better as the year goes on, especially if they're able to stay healthy. And Winfield and Coach Smolder's group, they're going to say we can't allow that to happen again, certainly not in the playoffs. So this one's going to be fun. But again, Herbert Hoover won this matchup back in week 2, 35-0. The winner of this matchup gets Princeton, who did beat Winfield earlier this season. Let's move on to Spring Valley, the 6th seed. They get number 11, Elkins. This is also a Saturday matchup. This game kicks off at 4 o'clock. No common opponents between these 2 teams. So you're really just looking at, okay, both of these teams are 7-3. We know that Spring Valley lost to Bridgeport, who is one of the best teams in AAA. They lost to Huntington, who's one of the best teams in Quad A, and they lost to GW, who's one of the best teams in Quad A. So no slouch in the Spring Valley Timberwolves when you look at their 3 losses. We know that Elkins lost to Philip Barber, North Marion, and Fairmont Senior. So again, we'll see what Spring Valley has up their sleeve. You know that they like to run the ball with their big dogs, Cam Purdue and Zeke Lewis. They've got it all there at Spring Valley, and I'm sure that they're excited to get those dudes on the Bermuda grass and not have to go to Elkins on a Saturday afternoon. All right, we'll switch gears now. We're going to go to AA. The Frankfort Falcons. Number 1 seed in AA. Bluefield is the 2. We'll go down the list here. Philip Barber, Independence, Doddridge County is 5. Roane County at 6. There's Midland Trail. Mingo Central, who got off to a hot start this season. They're the 8 seed. They will host James Monroe, who is the 9. We'll get to that in just a moment. Petersburg, Clay County. Logan at 12. Also had a very special season. They went 8-2. Followed by Lincoln, South Harrison, Oak Glen, and the 16 seed Williamstown. So when we talk about games of local interest in AA, let's start with number 8, Mingo Central. They are 8-2 this year. They play number 9 James Monroe, and that's up on the mountain. There was a bunch of snow up on the mountain on Monday earlier this week. I don't know what the weather's supposed to look like the rest of the week, if it's supposed to warm up and melt. Probably going to be a little cold up there. It also could be like 60 degrees, but that's why I'm not a weatherman. But I know that they had some snow up there, and the Miners probably practicing it on Monday. So they're going to be ready for whatever elements come their way. Common opponents between these two, Tug Valley and Westside. James Monroe beat Tug Valley 49-6. Mingo Central beat Tug Valley 35-30. That, to me, sounds like a check in the box of Mingo Central. As it pertains to Westside, James Monroe beat Westside 34-18. Mingo Central beat Westside 32-12. That one's kind of a wash. The transitive property doesn't always check out, but it is a data point that is interesting to me, so that's why I always throw it out there. Both teams average 31 points per game. You know that they like to score. Jameer Knuckles and the boys at Mingo Central. Mingo Central's legit, and this James Monroe team's coming in here. They're wanting to pull off an upset. They may not even consider an upset at James Monroe, but guess what? The winner gets Frankfort, so we will see how this thing shakes up there on the mountain. They say everything's better on the mountain. Well, things are different on the mountain. When you get 1 inch of snow in Huntington, you get like 3 or 4 up there on the mountain. So we'll see what happens down there. Number 5, Doddridge County, who is undefeated, 10-0, versus number 12, Logan, who is 8-2. I know that Logan ended up with a 12 seed. They're probably better than what your average 12 seed would be, but I understand when it comes to scheduling and the teams you play and the size of the teams you play, there's only so many points you can go after. But the Bulldogs did just beat Mingo Central, who earlier in the year beat Logan pretty good. So, again, transitive property, who knows, whatever. We do know that this Doddridge team can score. They put up like 41 points per game. We know that Logan likes to throw it around with Adam Baisden and the boys. So we will see. The winner of this thing gets Independence or Lincoln. The winner of that game, again, they'll play the winner of Doddridge County and Logan. This will be fun. 5-12 matchup. These 5-12 matchups in all of these classifications seem to be a lot of fun. Let's go to our final game of local interest in AA. We are talking about number 6, Roane County, who is 9-1, against number 11, Clay County, who is 7-3. This leans heavily towards the Raiders, folks. Of course, Roane County went all the way to the state title game last year and ended up running into Frankfort, and that state championship game certainly didn't go the way that they hoped that it would. So this is a Roane County team that knows its way around the playoffs and what it takes to get to Charleston. And again, this game leans heavily towards the Raiders. Roane beat Clay County 49-14 back in week 2, so a lot of things would have had to change between then and now in order for anyone to feel like, man, maybe Clay County walk into Spencer and upset them. And the winner of this thing gets Philip Barber or South Harrison. So that's the way that it looks in AA. Let's go to single A. We'll tell you about the seeding there. No surprise here, really. Well, maybe a surprise to some. It was going to be one of these two teams. Wheeling Central Catholic at the 1. Number 2 is Wahama, the defending state champs. You got Clay Battelle at 3. Pendleton County. Sherman, how about the Tide? What a year they've had. They're the 5 seed. St. Mary's at 6. The Cameron Dragons at 7. Tucker County 8. Tug Valley 9, just missing a home playoff game. They're going to have to travel to Tucker County. You got Meadow Bridge Regional there at 10. Wirt County, East Hardy, Greenbrier West, Ritchie County, the Man Hillbillies at 15. And the Tulsa Rebels sneaking in there at number 16. Always nice to see Tulsa playing some playoff football. So, let's start with the Tulsa Rebels. So that means they get number 1 Wheeling Central Catholic. Tulsa is 3-7. The 2 losses for Wheeling Central Catholic are to 2 teams in Ohio that typically always win games in the regular season. Barnesville and Fort Fry. Those 2 teams combined for a regular season record of 18-2. But their 2 losses being those 2 Ohio schools, no shame in losing to those 2 Ohio schools. Again, combined 18-2 record. This is going to be an uphill climb for Tulsa, and I think people understand that. It's not to say they couldn't go in there and shock the world, but it's going to be an uphill climb for the Rebels. They snuck into the playoffs with a big Week 10 victory over Riverview last week. I mean, that was basically a playoff game in and of itself for Tulsa. You lose that game, and well, who knows if you're sitting there at 16? Probably not. And so they kind of already have been playing for their season and their playoff lives. This is almost like round 2 for the Tulsa Rebels. So we'll see what they are able to do. This game is also on Saturday. Of course, they're heading way up to Wheeling, so it gives them time to get up there and get situated before they kick off. against Wheeling Central Catholic. Let's go to Tucker County now. They are the 8 seed. They're 6-4. They play Tug Valley, who's the 9. They are also 6-4. This is also a Saturday game. I know that Tug Valley right now kind of limping into the playoffs. They've lost their last 2 games. Haven't scored a whole lot of points in those games. They scored 6 points in each of those. You know, they have an all-world running back in Bryson Eli, who when he's on the field, things are different. He's an incredible athlete. I know he's been banged up. I'm not sure what his status is injury-wise right now, but I just know when he hasn't been out there for them, they haven't quite looked the same. And, I mean, he's one of the best players in the state. And so if he's not out there at full strength for them, this will be an uphill climb probably for the Tug Valley Panthers. Now, these teams have become very familiar with each other. We know that the basketball matchup between these two, these kids certainly know who each other are. There's no doubt about it. So Tug Valley may be coming with something a little extra. Bryce and Eli or not. We'll see what the Panthers have in store. I mean, Cameron Sloan, throw it up to that guy, right? We got athletes at Naugatuck, don't we? I hope I said that correctly. Sometimes, you know, you see that, it says Naugatuck, but I know you people down there like to say Naugatuck. I respect that. I don't want to, you know, come across as like a fraud or a poser for trying to pronounce it the way that you all do. I mean it with the utmost respect, I promise. You know I love you down there. I told Jimmy earlier this year I have a fantasy football team in one of my leagues. I'm in too many leagues, but we are called the Tug Valley Panthers. And we are, as of right now, the 1 seed in our playoff. So not that anyone cares, but I do love me some Tug Valley Panther football and basketball. All right, let's move forward. Number 5, Sherman. The Tide are 8-2 this year. Or should I say the Tide is 8-2 this year. Grammar's not my thing either. They play number 12, East Hardy, who is 5-5. East Hardy scores. They score a lot, but they also give up 30 points per game. So Sherman can probably cross the goal line on these guys a few times. Maybe not a few times, maybe plenty of times. Common opponent here, Pocahontas County. East Hardy beat them 55-26. Sherman beat them 45-0. So this is another fun 5-12 matchup. You think maybe this leans Sherman? We're talking high school football here. High school kids, you just never know. Playoff action, everyone's going to bring something a little extra. But can the Tide keep this season rolling? Can they get themselves to 9-2 and advance to the next round? We will see. Finally, our last game of local interest in Single A in West Virginia. We're talking about the defending state champion, 10-0, Wahama White Falcons. They are the 2 seed. They play number 15, Man, who is 3-7. This game is on Saturday afternoon. I believe Andrew Colgrove is going to be at this thing on Saturday, so we will have highlights. The White Falcons, boy, they're a force, and anyone in Single A knows that. 52 points per game. That's crazy. Their defense only gives up 11 points per game. That's even crazier. You combine a high-powered offense with a stout defense. Yikes, folks. I wouldn't want to see the Wahama White Falcons at any point, let alone the first round. I wouldn't want to see them in Charleston. And, you know, to add to it, these two teams are familiar with each other. They just saw each other last week. Wahama beat Man 49-0. So we love our Man Hillbillies. This one certainly leans Wahama. We'll see how this goes. We'll move on to Kentucky. We're going to start in Class 4A. Highlands, who is 9-2. They play Ashland, who is 7-4. Highlands just beat Greenup 35-7. That was in round 1. Ashland's coming off a win against Mason County 48-8. If you guys tuned in to Football Friday night, on Friday, of course, it's kind of redundant, you would have saw Justin Hughes, who's been playing quarterback at times for Ashland this year, jumping up and mossing people at wideout. Had Tanner Stutler throwing the rock to him. We know that they got Cam Davis and some of the boys in the backfield that absolutely light it up. Justin Hughes can do it all, folks. I was like, hold on, is that 13 catching passes out there? So I don't know if that's the plan moving forward in the playoffs here. I mean, they did it in round 1, so I'm kind of hoping we throw the ball up to 13 a few times. I'm not Coach Chad Tackett, though, so we'll see. But I was like, whoa, how about Justin Hughes there playing wideout? Anyways, the Highlands, they have 2 losses this season. They got beat by Boyle County, who was 10-1, and got beat by Cincinnati Elder, who is in, you know, the largest classification in Ohio. It's Division I, and a lot of people think that Cincinnati Elder is probably the best team in the state of Ohio. we'll find that out as these next few weeks shake out, because they will crown a state champion in Ohio in Division I. But a lot of people think Elder is one of the best teams in Ohio, period. So, yeah, their 2 losses being to those two schools, yeah, okay, don't make much of that. Ashland's going to have to bring their A game, and we know that they're certainly capable. So Ashland versus Highlands, it's going to be fun in 4A there. Then you got Johnson Central, who is undefeated, absolutely rolling, dominating teams. They are 11-0. They get Covcath, 8-3. Like I told you, Johnson Central's been dominant all year long. They love to run the football. Everybody knows it, and really no one's been able to stop it. Covington Catholic, they did lose their first 2 games of the year. They got beat by Ryle. It's a 6A school. And they also lost to Cincinnati Elder, and I just told you how good they are. Maybe one of the best teams, if not the best team in the state of Ohio. They'll have a chance to prove it in the playoffs. And then also Covington Catholic got beat by Highlands by 3. So Johnson Central and Covington Catholic, this is certainly a heavyweight bout between these two. Covcath in the first round of the playoffs just disposed of Boyd County, who we know gave Johnson Central a heck of a game in late September. Again, keep coming back to the transitive property thing. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just helps us understand what we're working with here. Guess what? The winner plays Highlands or Ashland. So there is the possibility for a Johnson Central Ashland rematch. I am sure that Chad Tackett's boys would love nothing more. But they got to go through Highlands first. Johnson Central and the crew are going to have to go through Covcath first. Easier said than done, folks. All right, moving on. We're going to go to 3A now in Kentucky. We're talking about Russell. They are 9-2. They play Bourbon County, who is 9-1. 2 common opponents for these two, Fleming County and Carroll County. Bourbon County beat Fleming 50-7. That was just last week. They also beat Carroll County 42-12 earlier in the year. Compare that to Russell. Russell beat Fleming County 49-14, so pretty much the same thing that Bourbon County did to them. And then they beat Carroll County 48-0. That was just last week. Pretty much the same thing that Bourbon County did to those teams. So this feels like a pretty even matchup. I mean, the reality is, guys, we haven't seen Bourbon County play. I haven't seen Bourbon County play. I've certainly seen Russell play a few times. So we'll see what the Red Devils are able to do. They get them at home, so that's got to feel nice. Home field advantage is certainly real in high school football. Let's move on to Lawrence County now. Man, 10-1. The Bulldogs are legit. We've started to see more of the Bulldogs, been getting some highlights of them as the year has gone on in the later stages here. They're awesome. They get Rockcastle County, who is also 10-1. Lawrence County's lone loss is to North Laurel, of course a much larger school than what Lawrence is. Rockcastle's lone loss is to Bell County. Common opponent, Estill County, both smoked them in the regular season, so not sure if you can make much of that. All I know is Luke Featheroff and the crew, they want to make a deep run in the playoffs. Clearly, that's been really the talk in Louisa since the preseason. Here we are. Now you get a chance to go out there and prove it. Now you get a chance to submit your legacy in the history books. You know, I put a thing on Facebook earlier in the week, and I asked people, like, who's the best team in your school's history? Lawrence County folks were saying, hey, maybe 97 or 99. I'm sure that those boys have been hearing about the 97 and 99 teams their whole life. So you got to think they're chasing those ghosts of the past, right? And to get yourself in that kind of rarefied air, got to make a deep run in the playoffs. So we'll see what the Bulldogs can do. They've been awfully fun. I'd hate to see their season come to an end. Let's go down to Class 2A now. Prestonsburg, undefeated. 11-0. The Black Cats have been rolling all season long. They get Knott County Central, who is 8-2, and they get them at home in Peaburg. You know what they say, Peaburg boys are fast? Well, that's been the case all year long. Black Cats, they rolled in round one. They beat East Ridge 42-0. Knott County Central beat Shelby Valley 30-20. So Knott County Central coming off a little more of a competitive game than what the Black Cats were. These two teams did play back on October 3rd. And since I told you Prestonsburg is 11-0, well, what do you think happened? The Black Cats won 45-7, and that was on the road, so they get them in their house this time. The winner of this thing plays Belfry or Martin County, which takes us to our next game. Belfry, 10-1 against Martin County, who is 9-2. Martin County's 2 losses are to Prestonsburg and Lawrence County. We just talked about both of those teams and how good they are. Belfry lost to Johnson Central. We've already talked about how great Johnson Central's been. They've been dominant. These two teams did play some common opponents. You're talking about Pike Central, Betsy Lane, Shelby Valley. Belfry beat Pike Central 49-14. Martin County beat them 42-20. Belfry beat Betsy Lane 48-7. Martin County beat Betsy Lane 48-18. Belfry beat Shelby Valley 47-7. Martin County beat Shelby Valley 40-20. I should also add Martin County actually beat Betsy Lane twice. All that to say, most of their common opponents, they've kind of disposed of all of them in the same shape, form, or fashion. So, this is going to be an absolutely phenomenal football game. We know that the Belfry offense is absolutely high-powered with Coach Varney there, and Varney at quarterback, of course, and Ace Cottle, J.B. Woolham, all these dudes they're Swiss Army knives, man. You can pretty much do whatever you want with them. They find ways to score. Martin County's Devin Mater, he's going to have to come to play, and he has all year long. So you're going to see some heavyweights there, some unbelievable athletes. This is going to be a fun football game. All right, let's go to Class 1A now. It's small school football, but these dudes pack a punch. We're going to start with Raceland, 9-1. We said at the beginning of the year, is this the year that Raceland quits knocking on the door and finally opens it up and wins the state championship? It very well could be. But there's some other teams in 1A that are going to have something to say about that. So they, like I told you, are 9-1. Their lone losses to Pikeville, and they get Nicholas County here in round 2. Raceland did not play last week. Kind of had a pseudo first-round bye, I guess, if you will. So kind of had a chance to regroup, get healthy, that sort of thing. It probably paid dividends for them. Hopefully it doesn't slow them down. Nicholas County has won a lot of ball games this year. Like I said, they're 9-2, but this Raceland team is pretty legit. And the Rams went down there and beat Nicholas County 51-14 a few weeks ago. So as long as nothing changed within the last few weeks, you would think probably a similar result, as long as the Rams don't overlook this group, take care of business, and get themselves on to round 3. One of those teams I told you that's going to have something to say about whether or not Raceland wins it all is Pikeville. Pikeville beat Raceland earlier this year. They are 8-3. They play Williamsburg, who is 6-4. Both teams have one common opponent. That's the Paintsville Tigers. Pikeville beat them 38-0. Williamsburg beat them just last week, 24-8. Is that a check in the box of Pikeville? Numerically, yes it is. But we don't play football games on paper. We play them on the gridiron. Williamsburg comes to Pikeville, and it's going to be fun. We'll see what happens. And it also means, I believe, the way that the bracket shakes out, if Raceland and Pikeville were to win out to the point where they see each other, it would not be in the state final. So, interesting. Okay, this has been a show. Let's go to Ohio, our third and final state. Not nearly as many games because we're 3 rounds into it now, and process of elimination has taken its toll on our local teams. And not, there are a lot of schools, it's basketball season, but not for everybody. Okay, we're going to start with number 1 London. This is in Division 3. We're going to start in Division 3. Number 1 London versus number 4 Jackson. The Ironmen are 9-2. This is the regional semifinal. The Ironmen coming off a big win over Miami Trace. If you saw our highlights on Football Friday night, Ryan Simons went bonkers. He was all over the field. London beat McNicholas last week, 17-14. You might remember Archbishop McNicholas has been playing some schools in our area. They played Ironton earlier this year. They played Wheelersburg, got beat by both of them. But McNicholas is pretty good. They gave London a run for their money. Again, 17-14. That was last week. London's defense has been pretty stout all year long. They've pitched 6 shutouts so far in 2025. One common opponent between both of these groups, that's Chillicothe, and both of them really whipped up on Chillicothe, so not much really to say about that. As far as historically speaking, these two haven't played since the 2004 regular season. Jackson won that matchup, so not incredibly familiar with each other, but I'm sure this week on film and on paper they certainly are. So we'll see what Andy Hall's boys can do. Can the 4-seed Ironman upset the 1-seed London? We will see. Regional semifinal. Remember, earlier in the year in the preseason, Coach Hall told me that a regional championship is one of the boxes they want to check. Well, they got to go through London to get there. We will see. We're going to jump down into Division 5 now. Number 1, Wheelersburg, 11-0 versus number 4, Barnesville, who is 9-2. This is the 4th straight season that these two teams meet in the playoffs. Berg has won the previous 3 matchups. They did play again in the playoffs for, what would have been a 4th time way back in 1992. Barnesville did win that matchup, so this is the 5th matchup all-time between these two teams. Wheelersburg is 3-1 in the previous 4, and they've won 3 in a row in this series. The Berg upset the Shamrocks last year. Remember, Wheelersburg, as a 14 seed, made it to the regional final last year. So I believe they went through what would have been a 3-seed Barnesville last year, who was undefeated. So again, in recent memory, Wheelersburg hasn't had much of an issue with the Shamrocks. But you also think Barnesville has probably been thinking about that game for whatever it's been, 365 X amount of days. So you know that they've had this opponent circled, even though Wheelersburg wasn't on their regular season schedule. Wheelersburg, of course, had a first-round bye last week. In their first playoff matchup, they beat a very good Morgan team. And look, Wheelersburg played pretty well against Morgan. You look at the final score, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. That's kind of what you would have expected Wheelersburg to do. And look, Barnesville last week just got after it against Portsmouth. They beat them 35-0, so they're playing some good football. And remember, Barnesville's 2 losses are to 2 West Virginia schools. GW, who's the 5 seed in Quad A, and then Independence over in West Virginia as well. So that's going to be a fun matchup. You kind of had a feeling that, you would see Wheelersburg-Barnesville again, just kind of based on the way the regular seasons shook out and how the seeding was going to shake out. So I'm glad we get it again. We will see. That is at Ed Miller Stadium on Friday night. I will be there. So get your shakers out and do all the things that you guys do there at Wheelersburg. It's always fun to visit you all. Okay. Moving on, Columbus Academy against Nelsonville York. The Buckeyes are 11-0. The winner gets either Wheelersburg or Barnesville, as we just mentioned. Columbus Academy's 2 losses are to Heath and Jonathan Alder. Jonathan Alder, a 3 seed in Division IV. Nothing to hang your head about losing those 2 games. These 2 teams have only played once before. That was a playoff game that Columbus Academy won back in 2006. So Nelsonville York, another magical season for them, 11-0. Can they beat the door down and get to a regional final here and see either Wheelersburg or Barnesville? We will see. That is at Columbus Academy, number 2 seed. So you got to go on the road and get it done up that way. Good luck to the Buckeyes. All right, let's move on to Division 7. We only have 1 team remaining. That's the Sims Valley Vikings. Skol, as they say. They are 9-2. They play number 1 Hillsdale, who is 10-1. Hillsdale was the state runner-up last year. They ran into the buzzsaw that was Marion Local. There are a lot of people around the state who think that, maybe Hillsdale is on a collision course for potentially Marion Local again in Canton. A lot of people were probably shocked at how Sims Valley dominated Trimble. It was a wet night. You thought, ooh, that may not bode well for their passing game. It did not matter. Bronx Carpenter and the crew threw that thing around like it was 75 degrees and sunny and dry. It was amazing to see. And for anyone who hasn't seen a Sims Valley football game in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, that's a different looking Sims Valley offense out there, folks. They're a lot of fun to watch. But this is going to be an uphill climb for this group. They're going to have to play their absolute best football. Each player on that team is probably going to have to play the best game of their life if they want to beat Hillsdale. That's no knock on Sims Valley. That's how legit Hillsdale is. So you have this enormous opportunity, Viking Nation. You knock off Hillsdale, everyone in Ohio is going to turn their head and, what's going on down there? Who are those guys? What are they doing in Willowwood? So we will see. We will see. I think that pretty much does it for this episode of WSAZ Sports Plus. I hope that gave you your high school football fix for the week. I know that was a lot. I threw a lot of numbers at you. It's hard a lot of times to talk about all of these teams because even though we're in Huntington here and we cover all these games, I get sent to Ohio a lot of times, most of the time. So I know a little bit more about the Ohio teams. Jimmy gets sent to West Virginia a lot. We have some people that are in Kentucky a lot. And so you try to know a little bit about a lot of teams. It's difficult once you get to playoff time too when you start seeing teams that we don't cover. I haven't seen Hillsdale play, bro. I don't know a whole lot about Hillsdale outside of the fact that I know that they're one of the best teams in Division 7 and they were in the state title game last year. I did watch that game against Marion Local. And so I hope this kind of gets you your high school football fix. I'm getting sad that we're winding this thing down, but hopefully we have teams in all 3 states that take us to that first weekend of December. And if that's the case, well then, folks, we still have a little less than a month left of this, and that's okay with me. And then we'll fully turn the page to basketball season. So, appreciate you rolling with the punches again. We're still in this setup over here. I'm not in my normal seat because I got to learn how to use this audio mixer and all these buttons. Not that that means anything to you guys. Jimmy and I will have to, settle our differences. We are still fighting, which is why he's not here on this show. I'm just kidding. Again, I told you, he's busy. But we'll have to get Jimmy back up here. Jimmy's going to be covering games all weekend long, so he'll have some insight for you next week. Hopefully, we get him up here. And again, Keith Morehouse and I will be talking college basketball. We're going to be talking soccer here soon. There's a lot of stuff going on all at once, and it's kind of overwhelming, but it's fun because it's sports. So enough for me rambling. Go follow us on social media at WSAZ Sports Plus. I'm on Facebook, Joseph Payton, WSAZ. Share it with a friend. Let them know what we're up to. Follow us on podcast platforms. And we will see you next Tuesday at 9 o'clock right up here in the WSAZ Now studio. This has been WSAZ Sports Plus. Thanks for watching.